Mr. West, thank you so much for giving me a couple of minutes to talk
Yeah.
about this fascinating project. Um, so let me start by asking you, in addition to an almost a kind of an homage to the gore and porn flicks of the 70s, the core of the film is an interesting look at the elderly, their needs, their solitude that we rarely see in movies. Why was it important to include their message, or to tell the story this way?
Well, I think to some degree, like you said, it's not often seen in movies. And I wanted to come, I was making this slasher movie and I wanted to have some villains that were, unexpected and weren't the things you've seen before. And I felt like, this is the kind of movie where you think you know where it's going and then it goes somewhere that you don't expect at all. And I wanted the villains in the movie to be, humans. I didn't want them to be supernatural. So that was a big part of it was, I think everyone has an existential crisis and a fear of mortality and getting older. And, there are certain things in society that we reserve for the young and not for the old. And some people, age in a way that they age gracefully and they age in a way that they feel better about. And some people are very resentful of it. And so all of those ideas, I think, were relatable to everybody. And I thought, well, what's a really outrageous horror version of that? And that's kind of where the start of the villain idea came from.
Interesting. So how difficult then was to find the balance between the gore, the sex, and the whole message?
I guess it was difficult. I mean, that just sort of was the movie. So I suppose like the movie's been relatively well received. So I suppose I pulled it off. But, right to the very end is you're trying to manage that. So the answer is like, it's very difficult, but it was that was the task at hand. So it was always trying to just, weave those things and humor and all this in and out just to kind of, because you don't want, it's not a message movie and you don't want people to feel like the movie's like, talking to them in that way, but you do want the movie to be relatable. And it's always good when someone that you don't want to relate to, because that's just a complicated feeling. And it just makes for the movie to be a more interesting, like visceral experience.
And interesting. I was wondering, I read that you have in mind or you're working on a prequel and sequel. So did you always have this movie in mind as a trilogy?
Well, the prequel is already done. So okay. It's done and people will find out soon when it's coming out.
Excellent.
We went to New Zealand to make X, and when we were in quarantine for 2 weeks to get into the country, I wrote the prequel, and I wrote it sort of with Mia as an idea of we could either make this movie, or at the very least, it's a good backstory for your character as Pearl. And so, but we ended up making the movie, and so it takes place in 1918, and it's about Pearl when she's young. And so that movie is done and will come out soon. There'll be information soon. We've tried to keep it as much of a secret as possible because like X, it's another movie that the less you know, the better. And then maybe, if we have some good fortune, maybe we'll make a third movie.
Oh, great. Awesome. So many compare it aesthetically similar to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So was that film an inspiration? And if not, which film do you think helped you find that specific look for X? I mean, or were you inspired by another film?
I was inspired by like so many films of the era that Texas Chainsaw is not as specific as I think people think that it would be. My feeling about Texas Chainsaw, which is one of the greatest horror movies of all time, is that when you set a movie in 1970s in Texas, you're going to have this movie looming over you, and especially when people are going to a farm. So I just felt like might as well embrace that and let people for the first 15 minutes of the movie think they know where this movie's going, because the iconography is familiar, and then it takes a big turn to where you weren't expecting. So I just felt like rather than try to subvert it, I'll just embrace it and just say, yes, it's the 70s in Texas. And so, that it's I'm going to let you expect what you think, and then I'm going to, pull the rug out from underneath you once we get there.
And you did it flawlessly. So congratulations. I love the film. I personally love the film. I wasn't expecting it. So you did a great work. My time is up. Thank you very much for your time. And again, congratulations on this fantastic film and a lot of success in your next project. Looking forward to the next one.
Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.